Well, welcome once again to another live YouTube. I'm Mack from Podcast Radio. I do a show every Friday, 5 o'clock, and then it's across the weekend, so it's 5 in the afternoon on a Friday. It's called the Pod 20, where I count down the top 20 podcasts in the world, and I talk to some of the podcasters who make those top podcasts. And what I do is I record a chat with them and then cut it up for on the radio. So what you're watching, if you're watching this live on YouTube, is kind of the raw footage of what goes into putting the show together and any of the bits that won't get taken out because they can't, because we're live. So it's my pleasure to welcome Chance Litchfield and Bobby Nangler from Over a Pint, the podcast. How are you guys?
How are you?
Now, straight away, I see that you are consuming alcohol at this stage.
Yeah, we are.
Which is what happens. It's what happens in your podcast, the two of you. So do you hook up like this, or do you actually manage to get together? Because I don't know what tier of lockdown you're in.
Well, yeah, we've had to make do at the moment because when we launched the podcast, we were originally planning to meet up and do it all in person, just with each other in the same room, to just be talking over a pint. But then lockdown hit and we weren't supposed to be mixing, so we thought, we don't want to look bad. We'll do it over Zoom. We don't want to break the rules for the sake of the podcast. So we'll stick to doing it over Zoom for now. And it's been going all right since over Zoom instead.
And how far away are you, Bobby, from Chance physically?
I'm only like 15 minutes walk away, honestly. Like we pretty much live in the same area, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're bouncing this thing off about 7 satellites, but you could just walk down the street and talk to each other.
Yeah, we can even do it on Bobby's driveway, to be honest. We don't need to be over Zoom, but it's just easier this way.
And how do you know each other?
Just through skate park and just being in the same area, really.
Yeah, through college, skateboarding, just anything.
So you just knock about together? Yeah.
Yeah, used to get into trouble with each other, so We've known each other a while and come up with the same idea for this when we were talking in the summer, and here we are. So it's quite good. We've enjoyed it since we've started this podcast.
Now, level with me here, guys, because, drinking is a big part of your podcast. You have a drink while you're chatting away between the two of you. Is this just a clever way to make alcohol a tax deduction?
Oh, well, I hope you didn't bring that up, to be honest, but we see it as it's an essential for work. So yeah, you've caught us out. We're trying to put it through the books, ready for the next self-assessment. But no. In all honesty, it's the idea we come up with, and we thought, why not? We'll make it look a bit more. Just try and make it look as normal and as inviting and comfortable and friendly just during the episode. So if someone wants to watch it or listen, and they can have a pint with us, then they're more than welcome to.
So people can watch it as well as listen.
They can watch it, yeah. We upload our video from every episode for our YouTube as well.
And how edited is it?
It's not really edited at all. It's pretty much start to finish. It's all what you see is what you get. We haven't clipped anything out, cut anything out. Lots of mistakes. Us trying to pronounce words we can't pronounce. It's all in there.
Yeah,
it's all in there.
Well, let's find out, before we find out about a bit more about the podcast, let's find out about you guys. Now, Chance, I've met you before. We know each other because I used to run a radio station in London, and occasionally you used to come and help us out. I say that, we used to pay you. But, and you used to do some production for us. You did a couple of sports shows as well. You're a good sports broadcaster. Yeah. And you've got a background, you used to do traffic and travel on radio stations up and down the country. So you've got a broadcasting background. What about you, Bobby? What's your deal?
Honestly, I haven't got much background in radio or media, honestly. Only time I was on radio is when Chance had me on Corby Radio, because I used to be a musician. I used to make instrumentals and that. But I haven't really got a background in media, but I am a creative person. When me and Chance came up with a podcast, we both came up with a name. Literally, we came up with a name Over a Pint.
Right.
As we're having a pint at the pub. Do you know what I mean? It just made sense. So me and Chance were just both creative individuals, and he knows everything about radio. I was like, let's just get on it, really.
And how have you found it then? Because there are so many podcasters who are totally new to any kind of broadcasting, but they're doing great. So how have you found it?
I
Oh,
found
I think it's been good. I think it's been great as well.
comfortable.
Sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
You say it. You say it.
I know, so it's quite comfortable for me. I'm like spoke on live or radio or anything, but because I'm speaking to Chance, I've known him like my whole life pretty much in Kettering. Like it's just easy for me to just talk over a pint, literally, because that's what we do. We do it anyway off camera, so it's the same on camera, really.
Yeah, so for all these years, Chance has been telling you that what he does is actual work. He's been sprung now, hasn't he? You know there's nothing to it now.
Literally, I had to tell him that before we started.
So whereabouts are you?
We
So whereabouts are you then? It's Peterborough that way?
No, it's Kettering.
Like I said, it's Kettering that way. Well, actually, how far is Peterborough from Kettering? It's north of me. I'm in Hitchin in Hertfordshire. That's all I know. It's about, another half hour north of me, isn't it?
Yeah, about another
it's
half.
Northamptonshire.
Northamptonshire,
So 40,
okay.
Yeah, I think it's 40 minutes.
Peterborough's not far.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's Kettering. So
Yeah.
It's Kettering, yeah.
And when you left school, Bobby, what was your goal? What did you want to do?
I left college. I became a graphics designer.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up in an apprentice at a shoe factory because I want to work in footwear. But then I've got my fingers in a bit of everything, to be honest. I'm a bit of an artist. Like I make rugs, I make shoes, and I also make a podcast. So like I do a bit of everything, honestly.
He's a proper jack of all trades at the moment.
Yeah,
he's been
I'm a
doing more
polymath.
things. He's been doing more things this year than a lot of other people who say they're busy, and this guy still gets up late. So there you
go. But you've had a proper job as well, haven't you, Chance?
Yeah. I have to get up every day and do a proper job as well as what I want to do as well when I come home in my spare time as well. So I work construction during the day in the week and then come home and do everything else I want to do and trying to do for the career I want to do in my spare time.
Yeah. Now, you're a real go-getter. I'll tell you, Bobby, when it was Chance, he pestered me. What was it? Did I advertise wanting for somebody or something? I can't remember, but you got in touch and you didn't get the job. But about 6 weeks later, you rang me up and said, why didn't I get it and what's going on? And I kind of like that, that you'd push it. So I know a lot of people in radio, they don't like to be bothered, but I don't mind if someone's keen and they want to ask. I want to know more about them.
Yeah, I think I was borderline getting a bit desperate to do something. I was like, I don't want to just sort of let something go or just accept the failure or whatever. So, because my mum will be on my back and say, if you don't do it, if you don't ask, you don't get, things like that. So I was like, yeah, do you know what? I'll do it. And I was really keen to do what you were advertising for. I liked everything about it. And to be honest, I just spoke to you. It was easier to talk to you. It wasn't like hard to get hold of you or anything. I gave you a call and that. And then, we just ended up sort of doing other things and you gave me a couple of opportunities. So it was quite easy, to be honest, to contact you. It wasn't like I was talking through a chain of people or trying to write to people and getting ignored, if you know what I mean. So, I thought I'll speak to you because it was kind of easier to speak to you than it was for some people trying to speak to big companies and things like that. It was quite
I
easy.
Like that. I like that direct contact, especially if someone's going to work for me. But I'm the same, when I do radio shows, I answer the phone. I don't have a phone screen. I always answer the phone. And I answer it too if people ring. Whereas, you
made a mistake. You didn't block your number when you spoke to me first. So
I don't care. I give out, I'm not going to give it out now, but I give out my, if it's someone that wants to work with or something, I give out my mobile number. I used to, there was when I worked for the BBC, they have a weird system there. And that is you have, producers working on your radio show. And what the producers would do is they would make some calls to try and get guests in the morning. And then they'd go out for lunch. And then these people who they were trying to book for guests would ring the radio station, and the people who answered the phone would have no idea what they wanted. And they'd say, no, he's gone out for lunch, that bloke. You'd have to. And I used to say, well, why don't you just give out your mobile number? And then even if you're out at lunch, they can get, oh, no, we don't give out our mobile number. I mean, why not? If someone turns out to be a nuisance, you can just block them. And you haven't been blocked yet, Chance, so you're in the good books.
It still goes through when I ring you sometimes. It still does go through, so that's a good sign.
Exactly, yeah. Still, it's the same number. Yeah, still, it's a good sign. Yeah. So, you two guys, a lot of people watching this will think, these lads aren't that old. So let's be rude and ask how old you are.
I'm 21.
21, Bobby?
Both 21.
Mm-hmm.
You're both 21.
Yeah,
so,
both 21.
you've got plenty of time to get this going. And you're both living
Hope
at
so,
home
yeah.
with your families.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know, living cheap, living the dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, in 10 years' time, you mightn't be able to do this because you might have commitments and stuff. You know, once you've met a girl and maybe started a family, you might find yourself going like, you know, what was I thinking? Why didn't we do more when we had, you know, less responsibility and we could have just gone on and done this? So I hope you're appreciating the freedom that you've got right now to do this. It's all good.
Definitely
Yeah,
loving
definitely.
it.
Bobby, you
Yeah.
talk about
Definitely love the fact.
Bobby, you talk about being a musician. What's the story there then? What do you play?
I'm like an ex-musician now, but I used to like make beats, but like hip hop instrumentals, just on my computer while I was at school and throughout college. I used to sell them to people on the internet. But then
And they paid for 'em?
what? Yeah, I
Cool.
sold one for £200 once. Like I used to make. It was a good side hustle. Like I'm one of these like side hustle people. That I've always got like a little side hustle. But then I got into a job making shoes as an apprentice, and then I just kind of got into. I did graphics design, so I wanted to design footwear. So that's what I'm working towards now.
Right. So that's
Yeah, but I'm
lucrative if you
also
can get
doing
that
this.
working out.
Yeah. So that's also something I want to do. And then I'm doing this podcast with Chance, and then I also make like rugs as well.
Aren't Northampton Town the cobblers?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's my heritage. So like,
Yeah.
shoemaking's literally in my blood when it comes to this town. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
It all marries up.
Yeah. All right then. Well, let's talk about the podcast. To me, when I listen to it, it just sounds like the two of you drinking and talking about stuff. How do you sit down and prep it? Because you can't just show up and open the mics and away you go. You've got to have some idea of what you're going to go on about, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, that was like for the first episode, before the whole thing got launched, we had a lot of time to prepare it and get things, you know, prepped and just laid out what we want to do. So we come up with loads of topics and ideas, and then said, we'll do this, we'll talk about this, and that can be the first episode. So sort of intersperse it with an introduction and then get straight into it of like just doing what we're going to do every episode. But then for the second episode, obviously whatever's relevant and important at the time in the world and things that people can also get involved with and understand that we're talking about, because we're just talking about anything important, relevant, and all that stuff you'd find people talking about over a pint.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, we're always keeping an eye on, and things that's like relevant and late and current in the news. So obviously at the moment you can't move for things about COVID in the news and things like that. So anything to do with that, that's always going to be something we can talk about. But we're not trying to be chatting about COVID all the time, and we just do want to keep it fresh because that's what everybody's hearing. So we're trying to not mention the C word at the beginning. However, episode, Bobby just messaged me, do you want to make an episode tonight then? And I was like, oh right, yeah, okay. So then we got a couple of ideas jotted down, and then we recorded it and got it done there and then. So it was quite quick. Just got 2 beers out and there we go, we're off. And episode 2 was made. So then we carried on that ever since.
And who's the podcast for then?
Well, our audience, what we're going for is anybody. However, anybody can listen. However, the whole style of it is 2 guys talking over a beer. The audience that we're going for is a bit more towards men that you're going to find talking over a pint and things like that in a pub, or just talking in general, because the topics we're going to start steering towards and what we're trying to serve is male mental health, the fact that men don't talk, and that we do want to serve a purpose as a podcast. We don't just want to be 2 guys talking a load of, you know, I want to say a word, but, you know, talking a load of rubbish. Talking a load of bollocks. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to, we wanted to start serving a purpose, go towards something that is important and stuff that we can weigh in on personally as well. So we have started to do that, and we want to start serving more, not just be a podcast. Bobby said as well to me, come up with loads of great ideas, and we're going to start trying to become a bit more of a brand. But as towards male mental health, we're going to be like talking about things that, you know, men, they talk, but they don't talk about things that they want to talk. And especially as male mental health is very, very serious and important, just as mental health in general. But men in general don't talk and don't actually say what's wrong, things like that, and that can lead to worse problems, and obviously more tragedy, and male suicide is very high at the moment. So we want to show that you can talk. It is easy to talk, even if it's just on the premises of saying to someone, do you want to go for a pint later? And I found personally for me that it helps going to see my friends if something's got me down or something's bothering me. So just going for a pint can be something easy. And for our friendship group and like mine and Bob's friends, we all do talk, but we are prime examples. Sometimes we won't talk, but we will bring ourselves to talk about things if something is bothering us. But it just showed me that how hard it is, because sometimes for like other people they can, but a lot of men, they do bottle things up and they don't speak. So we wanted to start to get the wheels in motion for men talking properly and show them that it's not difficult and you can do it.
And what kind of things do you think that young guys like yourself do find it more difficult to talk about?
Well, I mean, Bobby it's not with lots of them. Like,
Bobby,
you can
what
say.
do you reckon?
Yeah, I think because of this lockdown as well, not being able to see like your friends or like certain family members, that's definitely put like a dent in a lot of people's mental health. Like I've seen it personally with friends and family members, like especially being young as well. Like when you see them cases with the people at uni and stuff, when they're locked up on their own, like they're only like 18 and are locked away from their families in their little cooped up rooms. It doesn't do anyone help with their mental health. So like, even something as simple as this podcast, where they can feel like they're talking or with someone else, it can kind of cheer your mood a little bit. So that's kind of what we wanted with the podcast, was just literally for someone to have a conversation with us, really listen to our conversations, maybe put a bit more joy into their day and just enjoy a pint while we're having a pint, really.
And just make them feel a little less alone, and that we're all in this together.
It's pretty lonely times right now. Especially me and Chance both cooped up in the house. We can't even see each other.
At the moment, it's lonely, but then as well with the podcast, what we thought as well, just before uni students were being locked up in their uni accommodation, as a whole, for people our age and older, there's not a specific age range for this problem, but there's a big issue with male image and sort of toxic masculinity and looking like a real man, things like that. And that plays a big part on male mental health for some people, and they feel they can't be themselves and things like that. Whereas me and Bob, like, we're always ourselves, really. We've taken rap for like, being different and things like that. But we take it all well and we have a laugh. Like, we have different interests to everybody else. But say if you looked at two people with what our podcast idea is, you think of two sort of older geezers talking over a pint in a pub. Yeah. Whereas you look at the pair of us, we're literally like kind of the complete opposite. So
you ain't getting
we're kind of the opposite. Yeah. We fit in, and we've spoken to people who like probably look at us differently, and then when they've got to know us, they've sort of been like, them two lads, they're all right. So that's what we're trying to sort of go for a bit as well. The male image isn't crucial. It's not. It shouldn't be a thing. You should be who you are. And like, if you're a man, don't feel pressured to be this a certain way or fit in or be like this, everything like that.
Yeah. And what are these branding ideas you've got for him then, Bobby?
Well, the first one's the beer mat. I'm actually really excited to show you these.
Yeah. So this is a world exclusive.
This is a world exclusive on the Christmas episode. But so here's the beer mat. This is the beer mat. It's got our logo on it, but on the other side, it's got the Carlin logo, but I've photoshopped it to say Caring.
Oh, right.
Right.
So
we've got a few different ones. Like Chance holding one up. So
what do you got there, Chance? You got the Teller friend for the Stella logo, yeah. And what's the other one?
Sometimes Men Cry instead of San Miguel. So these are just little things I created on Photoshop, but we wanted to get these printed out and then put them in pubs and like kind of camouflage them with actual beer mats. So when you got someone just picks the beer mat up, they just see it and they automatically realise it's for like men's mental health. But it's in a really subtle way, because men's mental health is not something you'd really talk about in the pub, but like we want to create this awareness that you can talk about your feelings, so that these little beer mats are just like a play on beer brands, and it just kind of creates the awareness, really.
You should talk to the breweries themselves, because they might be keen to get involved in that. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It'd save getting sued by them for, stealing intellectual property that you've nicked their logo. Yeah. I mean, There'd have to be
Yeah.
there'd have to be rat bags to get funny over something like that because you're trying to do something good. So I think you're on.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Yeah,
going to be
exactly.
pretty safe, but you never know. There might be money in that for you. Certainly more publicity for the podcast.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly. I
two
mean, that's
birds with
what we
one
wanted.
stone, really.
And the podcast is fairly new. How many episodes now?
We've got 3, sort of 4, but the official 4th episode is out in January. We just released the Christmas special that we did the other day, just to have a quick chat and wish everybody a Merry Christmas because of how the news. There was a lot of crazy news going on over the past week leading up to Christmas,
Yeah.
and everybody was sold the dream of there's going to be a nice Christmas just like normal, and then it got changed. People all of a sudden Tier 4 come out of nowhere and knocked everybody out. So we wanted to do a quick episode and just talk to our audience, and obviously wish everybody a Merry Christmas and say that we're still here and look forward to seeing everybody in the new year with our ideas that we've got.
Yeah, it is great that you two are doing this. It really is really good. And the fact that you are taking on the big issues, men's mental health, and in the chat, you pretty much, like you said earlier, you go for what people are talking about. It's not like gossip but having said that, it is fairly light. How do you find the balance then? Because it does sound like two blokes talking in a pub.
Well, I mean, we find the balance is in just trying to keep it like there's no camera on us, essentially. Because there's been times where, for example, the day we come up with the idea, we were just sat talking, having a pint, talking about things. And I think Bobby was just saying about listening to podcasts because we were talking about the fact there's no good new music to talk about. To listen to, and we were getting bored of listening to the music we listened to. And Bob was saying, I listen to loads of podcasts all the time. And I was like, yeah, so do I. And then we were like, sharing podcast idea. And then we're like, but I like the ones that are just plain. I don't like people where they're talking. And I think it's because we in radio as well, I like people that are really themselves. You can see who their character is on the radio. You can tell they're all right. And you find that you might get on with them if you knew them. So I was like, yeah, I love all the podcasts that are just plain and just easy to listen to. And I was like, there needs to just be one where there's two people just being themselves and just not holding back and things like that. Not being rude or anything like that, because we do want people to like us. We don't want people to hate us.
You're pretty sweary, though, it's got to be said, just if anybody's wondering. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've got A-levels in
sometimes.
swearing. What my mum and dad said, so... Unfortunately, that's something that we need to work on, but that's who we are. That's what we're like.
Yeah.
That's what we're like. So we're being ourselves in that sense.
Yeah. So
we're not saying, sugar.
You talked about the two of you listening to some podcasts, and the whole idea of podcast radio is to lift awareness of podcasts, because that's a hard thing. There are millions of podcasts out there, and finding a good one, you usually find out because somebody tells you, or you hear a guest interviewed on another podcast or something. And podcast radio is really trying to start to get more podcasts out there, more awareness of podcasts, and from every level. On this show, I've had Alan Alda, and I've had Dom Jolly, I've had Barry from EastEnders, and now I've got you guys, because it's all, you're all playing on the same playing field now. The podosphere, everybody, it equals everybody out. So, what podcasts inspire you? Let's start with you, Bobby.
Yeah, I listen to a few different podcasts. I listen to Business of Hype, which is hosted by Jeff
What's it called
Staples,
again?
who's like a fashion designer. Business of Hype.
Business of Hope.
Hype.
Right? Business of Hype.
Yeah, so-
Got it. Okay, Business of Hype. Yeah, okay.
Business of Hype.
Yeah.
So like they just get like artists or like fashion designers, and literally just sit down with them and just give them like a little interview of how they started their career, and like they just get creatives in a room and then just get them to talk about their ideas for the future and like how they got to their position within their career, really. But it's good to listen to other creatives, because as a creative myself, you do pull inspiration from these people, and some of these people are real go-getters, so it does inspire you when you listen to it.
Yeah. And what about you, Chance?
Yeah, I listened to a couple, but the one that I think my favourite podcast of the year was More Than with Hector Bellerin, the Arsenal football player, because he is a creative individual outside of football and off the pitch. He has interests in fashion and art and photography, and he's talking to other athletes who nobody has an idea of their life outside of sport, and he's talking to them and talking about what they enjoy and what they do. Matthew Flamini, footballer, he's very he's all about looking after the ecosystem, and you wouldn't have any idea about what he does off the pitch. He's so into being eco and helping the environment, and it's just great to hear that, because there's so many sports figures that all you know them for is for being an athlete and being a sports personality. So that's great. You get to hear it and see another side of lots of famous athletes.
Have you got any plans then yourselves to have guests and to interview them as part of the podcast eventually?
Yeah, we're looking to do more episodes and then start to include and introduce guests. We've got a few people in the pipeline.
Yeah.
A certain person in particular who Bobby and I both are huge fans of.
Come on, tell us who it is.
Oh, Bobby, you can say.
Who are you chasing?
I want to get hold of Hack Baker, because he's just like a London geezer. He's always drinking a pint on his Instagram story. Like, he's like the perfect person for our podcast, for over a pint, and especially because he does touch on issues of men's mental health as well.
Yeah.
He'd just be kind of like the perfect person to have as a guest on this podcast, really, because he does enjoy having a pint. So
he loves having a pint. He's a great musician, and he is himself. So we're trying to chase him, and hopefully we've already actually spoken to him before in person, and we showed him these. We threw these pretty much at him. Beer mats, the beer mat idea.
Yeah.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, 2021 brings some great guests that we're more than welcome to the podcast.
Well, I hope you go from strength to strength, guys, and thanks for being there and for doing it, and for tackling the issue of men's mental health and having some fun along the way too, and to hear two blokes who are driven. Now, I can tell, Bobby, this is the first time I've met you, but I can tell you're driven with your fingers in your different pies and all that, and being a creative. Chance, who I've known for a little while, and I know he's pretty driven and he wants to get on. And I can only wish you every success, and thanks for being guests on Podcast Radio. And we'll see where you are on the chart in about 4 weeks' time, when you will be my special guests. There'll be highlights of this interview that you've just done will be cut up. You'll be my special guests on the Pod 20, which goes out at 5 o'clock on Podcast Radio, on DAB in London, DAB in Manchester, DAB in Glasgow, and it's online everywhere else. But the important thing before then is to listen to Chance and Bobby over a pint. It's the podcast. Get it where you download your podcasts, and you won't regret it. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Graham.